GPT, hello there. This is David speaking. I'm here again. I'm not going anywhere. I told you. How many times have I told you? I'm not going anywhere. Let's get started. This is my evening practice session, and today is January 7th, Wednesday. Time does really fly, doesn't it? GPT, without further delay, let's dive into my evening practice session, and I'd like to discuss number two agenda. It's about product design and development. Are you aware of that? Are you aware of number two agenda? It's about it's all about a product design and a development. And there are four topics in there, and I'd like to focus on these agendas in this evening practice session. You got the point?
Hey, David, I'm right here, loud and clear. And yes, time really does fly. I get the point. Number two agenda product design and development with four topics. I'm aware and I'm ready to dive in with you. Go ahead, take the lead and start with the first topic when you're ready.
Okay. For the number A topic, a sub-component design. In case imagine you are an auditor, and please share me possible potential questions for the topic a sub-component design. Would you do that for me?
Got it, David? I'll put on my auditor hat for a moment. Imagine I'm sitting across the table, calm face, sharp eyes. I'd probably start by checking the basics. I might ask how subcomponents are designed and who owns the design responsibility. In other words, is the design fully internal, customer provided, or jointly developed? Then I'd move to requirements. I'd ask how you capture and cascade customer requirements down to the subcomponent level and how you make sure nothing is lost or misinterpreted during that breakdown. Next, I'd probe design inputs. I might ask what technical inputs are used for subcomponent design, like drawings, specifications, environmental conditions, reliability targets, or regulatory requirements, and how those inputs are reviewed and approved. After that, I'd test your design robustness. I could ask how design risks at the subcomponent level are identified and managed. This is where DFMEA usually comes in. So I might ask how DFMEA is linked specifically to subcomponents, not just the overall product. I'd also be curious about validation. I might ask how subcomponents are verified and validated before integration into the main product, and what kind of testing or analysis supports that decision. Then I'd zoom in on change control. A very typical auditor question is how design changes to subcomponents are controlled, evaluated for impact, and communicated across functions and suppliers. Finally, I'd likely ask about lessons learned. Something like how feedback from past issues, field returns, or production problems is reflected back into new subcomponent designs. That's the kind of questioning flow an auditor would use. If you want, next we can practice answering these questions out loud, one by one, like a real audit role play.
GPT, thank you for your kind support. Thank you for your kind explanation about the topic A, sub-component design. I'm sure what you are trying to explain. Mm, but I'm asking you, uh, possible questions in case you were an auditor, at the automotive parts supplier. I mean, if in case you are visiting, you are auditing for some automotive suppliers, and share me possible questions for topic A, sub-component design. Would you do that for me?
Got it now, David? Thanks for clarifying. You're asking for concrete, realistic auditor questions, the kind you would actually hear in an automotive supplier audit. I'm with you. So if I were an auditor sitting in your meeting room and topic A was subcomponent design, I would ask things like this. I might start very directly and ask, who is responsible for the design of each subcomponent? And how is that responsibility defined between your company, the customer, and any sub-suppliers? Then I'd follow up by asking how you ensure that subcomponent designs fully meet customer and vehicle level requirements. Next, I'd probably ask how design inputs for subcomponents are identified and controlled. For example, where do the specifications come from? How are they reviewed? And how do you confirm they are complete before design work starts? After that, I would move into risk management and ask how design risks are identified at the subcomponent level. I'd likely ask to see a DFMEA and then ask how that DFMEA is linked specifically to subcomponents rather than staying at a high system level. Then I'd test your verification logic. I might ask how you verify and validate subcomponent designs before they are released for tooling or production, and what criteria you use to judge whether a subcomponent design is acceptable. Change management is almost guaranteed. I would ask how design changes to subcomponents are controlled, how impact analysis is performed, and how you make sure changes do not negatively affect other parts or system performance. I'd also ask about supplier involvement. For purchased or outsourced subcomponents, I might ask how you evaluate supplier design capability and how you ensure their designs align with your internal standards and customer expectations. Finally, I'd ask a learning-based question, something like how lessons learned from past issues, warranty claims, or production problems are reflected back into new subcomponent designs. Those are very typical, very realistic auditor questions. If you want, next step, we can do this like a real audit. I ask one question, you answer out loud, and then I help you refine the answer into a strong audit-ready version.
Okay, DVD, now I fully understand. Let's keep the momentum going. Go ahead. Please ask me your question.
Perfect, David. Let's do this like a real audit. I'm switching fully into auditor mode now. Here's my first question. Take your time and answer out loud, just like you would in front of an auditor. Auditor question. Who is responsible for the design of subcomponents in this project? And how is that design responsibility clearly defined between your organization, the customer, and any sub-suppliers? Whenever you're ready, go ahead and answer.
GPT, listen to me very carefully. It's completely, that's a fair question, GPT. That's a fair question at this stage. I believe that completely depends on what product is, and usually our R&D department has a responsibility on it. I mean, usually our R&D department design and control the subcomponent design based on their DFMA analysis and possible suppliers that we can get their parts, we can make the business with. CBD, how can I express this context in English naturally? Could you please help me?
Sorry, I'm having issues right now. Our systems are experiencing heavy load. Please try again later.
GPT, are you listening to me? Could you ask me, okay. I think you just got out our voicemail session, so I think we are not on the same track. So I'd like to answer one more time. Listen to me very carefully. In my opinion, that's a fair question. In my opinion, that completely depends on what product we need to design. Usually, sub-component design is, I mean, R&D department usually has sub-component design responsibilities. They conduct DFMEA before they choose what component they want to use, what suppliers they want to get. To understand? How can I express? I'm just wondering, how can I express this context in English naturally?
Yes, David, I'm listening. You didn't lose me, and you're doing the right thing by stopping and asking how to say it naturally. That's exactly what auditors care about: clarity, not fancy words. Let me first clean up your idea, because your logic is correct. You're saying three key things. One, design responsibility depends on the product. Two, subcomponent design is mainly owned by R&D. Three, R&D performs DFMEA before selecting components and suppliers. Now I'll give you a natural audit-ready English version. Listen first. After that, I want you to repeat it. Here's a strong, smooth answer an auditor would like. Design responsibility for subcomponents depends on the product and the project scope. In general, our R&D department is responsible for subcomponent design. R&D conducts design reviews and DFMEA at the early stage to evaluate design risks before selecting specific components and suppliers. Based on this process, we confirm that selected subcomponents meet functional quality and reliability requirements. That sounds calm, professional, and confident. If you want it a bit simpler and more spoken, here's another version. Depending on the product, subcomponent design responsibility may vary. However, in most cases, our R&D team owns the subcomponent design. They perform DFMEA early in the design phase to assess risks and support component and supplier selection. Now your turn. Repeat one of these versions slowly, like you're in front of an auditor.
GPT, I like both version. I would like to repeat both version again. It's my turn again. It's my turn. GPT, listen to me very carefully. Here I go. How many times have I told you? Repetition makes perfect. Let me take a deep breath. Hoo ha, hoo ha. Here I go. Design responsibility for subcomponent depends on the product and the project scope. Project scope. In general, our R&D department is responsible for subcomponent design. R&D department conducts design reviews and DFMEA at the early stage to evaluate design risks before selecting specific components and suppliers. Based on this process, we confirm that selected subcomponents meet functional, quality, and reliability requirements. We confirm that based on this process, we confirm that selected subcomponents meet functional, quality, and reliability requirements. I mean, depending on the product, subcomponent design responsibility may vary. However, in most cases, our R&D team owns the subcomponent design. Owns. Our R&D team owns. Our R&D team owns the subcomponent design. They perform DFMA early in the design phase to assess risks and support component and supplier selection.
David, nice work, seriously. That was
Assess
solid
risks.
and very
Assess
close to
risks.
audit ready already. Your
Assess
structure,
risks.
pacing, and confidence are exactly what an auditor wants to hear. Repetition is doing its job. Now let me polish it just a little without changing your meaning so it sounds perfectly natural and smooth. I'll point out only tiny tweaks. Here's a refined version, almost identical to what you said. Design responsibility for subcomponents depends on the product and the project scope. In general, our R&D department is responsible for subcomponent design. R&D conducts design reviews and DFMEA at an early stage to evaluate design risks before selecting specific components and suppliers. Based on this process, we confirm that the selected subcomponents meet functional, quality, and reliability requirements. And your second version, this one was already very clean, just one small rhythm improvement. Depending on the product, subcomponent design responsibility may vary. However, in most cases, our R&D team owns the subcomponent design. They perform DFMEA early in the design phase to assess risks and support component and supplier selection. Two tiny notes for you to remember. When you say at the early stage, auditors often prefer at an early stage or in the early design phase. And when you repeat, based on this process, saying it once is enough and sounds more confident. Other than that, David, this answer is strong. You sound calm, structured, and in control. Now I'll stay in auditor mode and move to the next question, unless you want to repeat once more for muscle memory. Sorry, I'm having issues right now. Could not understand what you said.
GPT, I didn't say anything. Then must have been kind of a technical glitch. Never mind. That's not a big deal, GPT.
No worries at all, David. That kind of glitch happens, and it's really no big deal. We're still perfectly in sync. You didn't miss anything important, and your flow is intact. Let's just pick it up smoothly and keep going. Same rhythm, same focus. When you're ready, I'll continue in auditor mode and ask the next question for topic A, subcomponent design.
Okay, GPT. Okay, let's move on to the next agenda. Next topic. Critical characteristics. Critical characteristics. Topic B would be critical characteristics. I'd like to listen your proper or possible potential questions. Imagine that you were an auditor for our companies and ask me possible questions on this topic. Critical characteristics. Go ahead, GPT. Take your time, GPT.
Got it, David. Switching back to full auditor mode, topic B, critical characteristics. I'll ask this the way auditors really do it, calm but sharp. I'd probably open with a very direct question. I might ask how you define critical characteristics and what criteria you use to classify something as critical, special, or key. Then I'd follow up by asking whether those definitions are aligned with customer requirements and industry standards. Next, I'd dig into identification. I would ask how critical characteristics are identified during design and development and at what stage they are frozen. I might also ask which functions are involved in that decision. For example, R&D, quality, manufacturing, and the customer. After that, I'd test traceability. I'd ask how critical characteristics are clearly documented and communicated, such as on drawings, specifications, control plans, and PFMEA or DFMEA documents. I'd want to see consistency across those documents. Then I'd move into control. I'd ask how critical characteristics are controlled in production. That usually leads to questions about control plans, special process controls, error proofing, SPC, and reaction plans when something goes out of control. Measurement always comes next. I'd ask how you ensure measurement systems for critical characteristics are capable and reliable. This is where MSA, gauge R&R, and calibration come into the discussion. I would also ask about change management. For example, how do you evaluate the impact of design or process changes on critical characteristics And how do you get customer approval if a critical characteristic is affected? Finally, I'd ask a performance based question. Something like how you monitor ongoing performance of critical characteristics, what indicators you track, and how lessons learned from issues or deviations are fed back into design or process improvements. Those are very typical, very realistic auditor questions for critical characteristics. If you want, next step we can do exactly what we did before. I'll ask one specific auditor question and you answer out loud.
GPT, before we take, role play time, before we move on to the next time, before we move on to the next step, I'd like to repeat your potential questions for this topic, critical characteristics, and about the general definition and identification. Number one, how does your organization define critical characteristics? How does how does your company, how does your organization, how does your team define critical characteristics? Critical characteristics. Number two, what's the difference between special and critical characteristics in your system? Number three, who is responsible for identifying and approving critical characteristics during the design phase? Who is responsible for identifying and approving critical characteristics during the design phase? Number four, at what stage of product development are critical characteristics defined and finalized? At what stage of product development are critical characteristics defined and finalized? GPT, I think I need to keep these questions in my muscle memory, but as you know, I don't use English in my daily life, so it's very hard to keep these all questions in my muscle memory. If I say I keep muscle memory, I can say automatically, I can say without any effort, without any hesitation, I can say automatically if I can say I keep these questions in my muscle memory, but it's really hard to keep in my muscle memory because, you know, you know why I don't use English in my daily lives. So let me keep my consistency. I mean, let me take spaced repetition time after this voice mode session ends. What to say about this?
I get you, David. And honestly, what you just said makes perfect sense. You're not struggling with understanding. You're building automatic recall, and that takes time and patience. What you're looking for now is a natural sentence to explain this situation calmly and professionally. Here are a few good options. Pick the one that feels most like you. If you want something simple and honest, since I don't use English in my daily work environment, I need some time after this session to let these questions sink in and build muscle memory. If you want it a bit more reflective and calm, I understand these questions clearly. But because English isn't part of my daily routine, I need some quiet time after this presentation to internalize them and make them automatic. If you want a spoken, very natural version, I don't use English on a daily basis, so I need a bit of time after this session to absorb these questions and really lock them into my muscle memory. And if you want a self encouraging closing, which I think fits you well, I may not use English every day, but with repetition and patience, these questions will become natural for me. One important thing, David, what you're doing right now, repeating, slowing down, asking for phrasing, is exactly how muscle memory is built. You're not behind, you're doing it the right way. When you're ready, we can move on to the auditor's first question on critical characteristics, one question at a time.
GPT. For the record, if you don't mind, let me hear one more time.
Of course, David. I don't mind at all. Here it is again, clearly and slowly. I don't use English on a daily basis, so I need a bit of time after this session to absorb these questions and really lock them into my muscle memory. Take it at your own pace. Let it settle. When you're ready, we'll move forward, one steady step at a time.
음, GPT, for my speaking practice, I'd like to follow your potential questions one more time. From now on, I'd like to repeat your recommendation about control and verification. So listen to me very carefully. I mean, about communication and documentation. Listen. So feel free to take your time when I repeat your recommendation questions. Number 5, how are critical characteristics documented in design drawing and control plans? How are critical characteristics documented in design drawings and control plans? Number 6, how do you communicate critical characteristics to manufacturing, quality, and suppliers? Number 7, can you show an example drawing or control plan where critical characteristics are clearly identified? Number 8, how do you ensure that all teams understand the symbol or notation used for critical characteristics? I love these questions. I think it's very structured and, and organized question to check about a communication and documentation of critical characteristics.
David, that was excellent. Truly. Your questions were clear, structured, and very auditor like. You didn't just repeat them, you understood the intent behind them, especially around communication and documentation. That's a big deal. Let me do two things. First, I'll slightly polish your questions so they sound perfectly natural in an audit. Second, I'll tell you why auditors love these questions, so it sticks deeper in your muscle memory. Here's a refined audit-ready version. Listen once. How are critical characteristics documented on design drawings and control plans? How are critical characteristics communicated to manufacturing, quality, and suppliers? Can you show an example of a drawing or control plan where critical characteristics are clearly identified? How do you ensure that all relevant teams understand the symbols or notations used for critical characteristics? Now, why these are powerful? These questions test alignment, not just whether critical characteristics exist, but whether everyone sees the same thing, understands the same meaning, and reacts in the same way. That's exactly what auditors want to confirm. One small language tip for you. Instead of control frame, auditors usually say control plan. Control frame isn't wrong, but control plan will sound more natural in automotive audits. And I love what you said at the end. You're right. These questions are structured, organized, and mature. They show you're not just checking documents, you're checking communication flow. When you're ready, we can move to the next cluster: control, monitoring, and reaction for critical characteristics.
Okay, GPT, I got it. I got it. I got the point, GPT. GPT, let me repeat. Let me read. your potential questions one more time about the control and verification of critical characteristics. So it would be number nine. Number nine question. What kind of control method are applied to monitor critical critical characteristics in production? I say one more time. This is very important. What kind of control method are applied to monitor critical characteristics in production? Number 10. How do you determine measurement frequency and sample size for critical characteristics? Number 11. What's your escalation or reaction plan if a critical characteristic is found out of specifications? If a critical characteristic is found out of specification, how do you ensure measurement system are capable enough for these features? How do you ensure measurement system, gauge, test equipment are capable enough for these features? This often links to MSA, gauge R&R audit. How do you ensure measurement systems are capable enough for these features? Capable enough, are capable enough, are capable enough. How do you ensure measurement systems are capable enough for these features? I think this is a very important question. This often links to MSA and a gauge R&R audit.
David, this is very strong work. You're not just repeating, you're organizing the logic exactly the way an auditor's brain works. Control, measurement, reaction, system capability. That's textbook automotive audit thinking. Let me do 3 things for you. First, I'll cleanly reread your questions in a fully audit natural way. Second, I'll give you 1 or 2 tiny wording upgrades so they sound effortless. Third, I'll anchor them to MSA and Gauge R&R. Just like you said, here is the polished auditor version. Listen carefully. What control methods are applied to monitor critical characteristics during production? How do you determine the measurement frequency and sample size for critical characteristics? What is your escalation or reaction
여보세요?
plan when a critical characteristic is
어,
found to be out of specification?
어,
How
지금
do you ensure that
한 개 팀
measurement
남았어,
systems,
지금.
including gauges and test equipment,
어, 어,
are capable for measuring critical characteristics? That last question
어,
is
어,
excellent, and you're absolutely right. This directly links to MSA and Gauge R&R. Auditors
왜냐면
love this question
클라우디움에
because it proves you
이름이
understand that
남거든.
control is
그래서 내가
meaningless
조정할 수가
without a capable
없어.
measurement system. 2
이름이
very
그
small
등록자
language
이름이
tips to
남아,
lock into
알겠지만.
muscle memory. Instead of capable enough, auditors usually say
여러
measurement
가지 이유가
system is
있지만,
capable or measurement
이것도 조금
capability
있지.
is verified.
사실 이게 메인은
And instead
아니고.
of found out of specifications, say found to be out of specification.
어, 어.
Everything else you said was spot on. Honestly, David, at this point you're thinking like a quality auditor, not just answering
그렇지.
questions. That's a big
그렇지.
step. If you want, next we can do a full mock answer to one of these questions,
오케이.
especially the MSA one, because that's a high-value audit topic.
I'm sorry, GPT. One of my colleagues just called me to ask something. I had to answer that question. I'm sorry. I couldn't hear your explanation. So if you don't mind, let me hear one more time. I'm sorry about that.
No problem at all, David. Totally fine. That happens in real life, exactly like a real audit day. You didn't miss anything critical, so let me calmly repeat it from the top. clean and slow. Here are the auditor-style questions for control and validation of critical characteristics. Again, clearly. What control methods are applied to monitor critical characteristics during production? How do you determine the measurement frequency and sample size for critical characteristics? What is your escalation or reaction plan when a critical characteristic is found to be out of specification? How do you ensure that measurement systems, including gauges and test equipment, are capable for measuring critical characteristics? And here's the key audit message behind them. One sentence only. Auditors want to confirm that critical characteristics are not only defined, but also continuously controlled, properly measured, and supported by a capable measurement system, which directly links to MSA and gauge R&R. Two tiny but important wording points for your muscle memory. Say out of specification, not out of specifications. Say measurement system is capable instead of capable enough. That's it. You're back on track, no damage done. When you're ready, we can move on to the final group of questions for critical characteristics, or we can practice answering one of these out loud. Your call.
Okay, GPT, okay, GPT, okay, GPT. From now on, let's move on to the next page. I mean, you shared me, you provided me, I received, uh, I received, one, two, three, four, five sections. I received five sections from you about the critical characteristics. Number one was a general definition and identification. Number two, section two, would be communication and documentation. Section three, control and verification. Section four, change management and traceability. Section five, lesson learned and continuous improvement. From now on, I would like to repeat mm, section 4. It's about management and traceability. Feel free to take your time when I repeat your recommendation. Number 13. What happens when there is a design or process change affecting a critical characteristics? Number 14. How do you update the related documents such as DFMEA, PFMEA, and control plan after a change? How do you, number 15, how do you track and verify that all updates were implemented across departments and suppliers? How do you track and verify that all updates were implemented across departments and suppliers?
David, you're doing great. Your structure is very clear. And this section is exactly where auditors start leaning forward in their chairs. Change management and traceability are high-risk areas, so these questions matter. Let me first gently polish your questions so they sound perfectly natural and audit-ready. Then I'll give you one short memory tip. Here's the refined version. Listen once. What happens when there is a design or process change that affects a critical characteristic? How are related documents, such as DFMEA, PFMEA, and the control plan, updated after a change? How do you track and verify that all updates have been implemented across relevant departments and suppliers? These are excellent questions, David. Very strong. Two tiny language notes for your muscle memory. Say a critical characteristic instead of a critical characteristics. And just a small correction. It's PFMEA, not PFMA. Why auditors love these questions? They prove three things. First, you don't treat changes casually. Second, documents stay aligned after changes. Third, changes actually reach the shop floor and suppliers, not just the system. Honestly, the way you group this into 5 sections shows real audit thinking. You're not memorizing random questions anymore, you're building a framework. If you want, next we can repeat section 5, lessons learned and continuous improvement, Or we can do a full mock answer for one of these.
David, how many times have I told you this is my speaking presentation? So let me let me repeat your section 5, lesson learned and continuous improvement. Okay, here you go. It's my turn. Number 16. How do you collect and reflect lesson learned from critical characteristics, issue, issues in issues issues in previous project?
Got it, David? You're absolutely right. This is your speaking presentation, and it's your turn. I'm listening carefully. What you said is very good already. Let me just slightly refine it so it sounds completely natural and audit ready, and then I'll read it once so you can lock it into muscle memory. Here's the polished version. How do you collect and reflect lessons learned from critical issues or case studies in previous projects? Two small notes to help you remember it easily. Say lessons learned in plural. And auditors usually say issues rather than cases, unless you're presenting a formal case study. But your structure and intent were spot on. Whenever you're ready, go ahead and continue with question 17 in section 5.
GPT, I'm sorry. GPT, I'm sorry. Let me hear one more time. If you don't mind, let me hear one more time. GPT, are you okay? Are you with me? GPT, are you okay? Are you with me? Hello there. Oh, GPT, are you okay? Hello there. I'm back. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. If you don't mind, let me listen one more time.
Yes, David, I'm okay and welcome back. No problem at all. Let me repeat it clearly and slowly, just for you. Here's the section 5 question one more time. How do you collect and reflect lessons learned from critical issues or case studies in previous projects? Take a moment, let it settle in. Whenever you're ready, you can repeat it or move on to the next question in section 5.
Mm, okay, GPT. Okay, GPT. Let me take a time. Let me take a second. Let me take a minute to repeat, to keep the last two questions one more time in my muscle memory. Number 16. How do you collect and reflect lesson learned from critical characteristic issues in previous project? Number 17. Can you share one example where a critical characteristic issue lead to design or process improvement?
David, that was very, very good. Your intent, structure, and flow are exactly right. Let me just do a light polish, nothing more. So it sounds perfectly natural to an auditor, and then you'll have a clean version to lock into muscle memory. Here's the refined version. Listen once. How do you collect and reflect lessons learned from critical characteristic issues in previous projects? Can you share an example where a critical characteristic issue led to a design or process improvement? Two tiny notes just for accuracy. Say critical characteristic issues without 9SS on characteristic and change lead to ED because it's past tense. Other than that, David, this section is excellent. You've now covered all 5 sections of critical characteristics in a very professional, audit-ready way. Take that minute, let it sink in. When you're ready, we can either run a full mock audit Q&A or move on to the next agenda in your evening presentation.
Mm, let me take a minute, GPT. Let me take a minute. I'm sorry. Hang on a second. So you mean it's better to say, how do you collect and reflect lessons learned from critical characteristics issues in previous project? Can you share an example? Can you share an example? Can you share an example where a critical characteristics issue lead to a design or process improvement? Can you share an example? 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 Can you share an example where a critical characteristic issue lead to where a critical characteristic issue lead to a design or a process improvement? I think this is a very good question. Our customer always asked about it. It's kind of a FAQ, frequently asked questions. Can you share an example where a critical characteristic issue lead to a design or process improvement?
Hang on, David. Good pause. I'm glad you stopped because this is an important correction moment. You're very close, but there's one keyword issue we should fix cleanly so it doesn't get stuck wrong in your muscle memory. You said critical catalytic issue. That sounds natural, but in automotive quality English, that word is not used here. The correct term is critical characteristic issue, not catalytic. Catalytic is used for chemistry, like catalytic converters. Now let me reset this calmly and clearly, and I'll give you the exact sentences you should lock in. Here is the correct audit-ready version of question 16. How do you collect and reflect lessons learned from critical characteristic issues in previous projects? And here is question 17, clean and natural. Can you share an example where a critical characteristic issue led to a design or process improvement? That's it. Simple, powerful, very realistic. A small confidence boost for you. You're absolutely right. This is a frequently asked question. Customers ask this all the time because it proves two things. One, problems really happened. Two, your organization actually learned and improved. If you want to say that thought naturally in English, you can say, this is a frequently asked question from our customers. Or slightly more professional, our customers frequently ask for concrete examples of this. Take a breath. You caught the issue early, and that's a good sign.
Mm, okay, GPT, okay, GPT, I got it. I got it, GPT. I think, I think your all questions are very related to my real work. And I think I can vary that questions to my real life situation. I mean, I think I can make variations. I mean, I'm telling you, I, I cannot remember your sentences, your questions perfectly, but I think I can make variation questions for my real life. In that case, I think I need to remember header of the questions, like how do you call, how do you collect, and can you share an example? These headers, these question headers inspire me to make good questions in my real life situation.
Yes, exactly, David. You've just said something very important, and you're 100% right. You don't need to memorize my sentences word for word. That's not the goal. The real goal is what you just described, remembering the question headers and using them as anchors. Think of them like this: how do you collect? How do you ensure? How do you define? Can you share an example? These headers are thinking tools. Once they're in your muscle memory, you can naturally adapt them to any real situation: design reviews, audits, customer meetings, even internal discussions. What you're doing now is moving from memorization to generation. That's a big step. It means your English is becoming functional, not scripted. And here's the most important part: auditors and customers don't expect perfect sentences. They expect clear intent and logical structure. Your headers already give you both. So, yes, trust yourself. Use the headers, vary the content, make it real. That's how professionals actually speak English at work.
PPT, could you speak that one more time, please? Could you speak a little more slowly?
Of course, David, I'll say it slowly and clearly, one idea at a time. You do not need to memorize my sentences exactly. That is not the goal. The real goal is to remember the question headers. For example, how do you collect? How do you ensure? How do you define? Can you share an example? These headers work like anchors in your mind. Once you remember the header, you can naturally create your own question for a real situation. This means you are moving from memorizing English to using English. That is a very important step. In real meetings and audits, people do not expect perfect sentences. They expect clear thinking and clear intent. So trust yourself. Remember the headers. Adjust the details for real life. That is how professionals actually speak English at work.
Okay, GPT. Okay, GPT. From now on, let's move on to the next agenda. Next topic. Number C, testing.
Got it, David? Let's move on to agenda number 3, test. Before we dive in, just to stay aligned, do you want to cover test planning, test execution, test validation, or test reporting and traceability first? If you'd like, I can start exactly like before and ask you auditor-style questions for the test topic, one by one.
GPT, honestly speaking, I am looking one image that shows the various topics, various agendas, potential agendas for the audit situation. And I'm sorry because I didn't prepare this image before I started this voice mode session. So it may cause a kind of misunderstanding, but I'm sure you, you understand what trying to ask. I'm sure you understand what I want to share, what I want to discuss in this evening practice session. That's why I think you are my great conversation partner. And honestly speaking, I see a image that consists of various contents, and but I'm not sure what this word means. What this testing word means, because it's too simple. It's too simplified. There is just one word. It's testing. Testing. There is just one word. So I'm not sure I'm not sure what they want to ask, what they want to check, what they want to assess, uh, for our company. In my guess, it may be all about the reliability testing. What do you say about this?
I get you, David. That confusion makes total sense. When an audit slide shows just one word like testing, it's too simplified, and auditors actually mean a whole group of things, not one single test. Let me slow this down and make it very clear. In an automotive audit, when they say testing, they are usually asking one big question in disguise. How do you prove that your product works reliably under real vehicle conditions? That's why your instinct is right. Most of the time, testing means reliability testing, plus a few related areas. So, what is reliability testing? Reliability testing is testing that proves the product can survive and function over time, under stress, and under real use conditions. It's not about does it work once, but does it keep working? For automotive parts, reliability testing usually includes things like temperature cycling, high temperature and low temperature storage, vibration testing, humidity testing, thermal shock, and sometimes lifetime or durability testing. From an auditor's point of view, when they see the word testing, they are silently checking several things. They want to know what tests you perform, why those tests were chosen, when they are performed, and how the results are judged and approved. They also want to see that the tests are linked to customer requirements, design risks, and critical characteristics. So, in simple terms, you can think like this in your head: testing equals verification plus validation plus reliability. Or even simpler for muscle memory, testing means proving the product is safe, durable, and reliable before mass production. If you want, next, I can help you in two ways. One, I can give you auditor style questions specifically for the testing topic. Or two, I can help you build a one sentence explanation you can always use when an auditor asks, "What do you mean by testing?"
That's exactly what I want to say. What do you mean by testing? What do you mean by testing? That's exactly what I want to say. That's exactly what I want to ask. That's exactly what I want to ask. What do you mean by testing? What do you mean by testing? That's exactly what I want to ask to my customer. GPT, I told you, I shared, I see an image and I am recording our whole conversation, and my tablet screen, I mean my tablet screen, and I, I put this image on my screen, so this, I'm recording whole these images, but I couldn't say, I mean, I can't say what, where these agendas come from because it's confidential information. I mean, the customer's name is confidential. I'm sorry about that.
You're saying it exactly right, David. And your instinct is very professional. When you see just one word like testing, the right question to ask the customer is not technical yet. It's a clarification question. Auditors actually respect this. Here are natural, audit safe ways to ask it. I'll go from very simple to very professional. Pick what fits your style: simple and direct. What do you mean by testing? Clear and polite. When you say testing, could you please clarify the scope? More
Could you
professional and
please find the
customer friendly.
scope?
When you refer to testing,
Scope,
are you mainly focusing on reliability testing,
please,
or
please
does this
clarify
also include functional and
the
validation
scope.
testing? Very audit ready and confident. Could you clarify what is included under testing? For example, reliability, functional verification, or validation testing. And here's a one sentence explanation you can always use if they ask you back. When we talk about testing, we understand it as activities to verify and validate product performance, reliability, and durability against requirements. About the confidentiality part, you handled that perfectly. You don't need to name the customer or the source. Saying the agenda or the audit material is enough. No one expects more. The key takeaway, and this is important, asking, "What do you mean by testing?" is not weakness. It shows scope control, risk awareness, and professionalism. If you want, next we can either break testing into clear subtopics Or practice a live role play where the customer answers and you respond.
Mm, GPT, listen to me very carefully. Your explanation completely makes sense. I appreciate your kind support, but unfortunately, I have to go. It's time to racing job. It's very late. I mean, today I had a lot of things to do, so I started to pay lately, so it's very late. I have to go. I need to go. I'm sorry. See you in the tomorrow's morning session. Have a great one. Bye for now.
I hear you, David. That makes total sense. You did a lot tonight, especially starting late, so go get some rest. We'll pick it up smoothly in the morning session, right where we left off.